Welcome to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Episode 8, which training collar is best?
Okay, so let's go from that choke chain. If we were going to go down the scale, I would just straight up look at like a slip collar, right? A slip collar in essence is a choke chain that's made of rope. That's all. Right. And these ones also are in 2-inch increments. So best way you got to do it is you have to measure your dog's neck and see how many inches it is. And then I would maybe just add 2 inches. If your dog has a fat head, add 4 inches and you might have a 4-inch tail on it. So that's how that works. The action on the slip collars definitely not as fast as that on a choke chain, right? They can definitely be very useful and cool looking. A lot of times people think that because it's not chain, that it's not as aversive. I've put one of those slip leads on or slip collars on, and they definitely grab attention. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And I will go ahead and say the same thing about its cousin, which is the slip lead, right? So the slip collar is just the rope collar, and then the slip lead is actually a 4 foot to 6 foot length of rope that has a loop at the very, very end.
Yeah, I think the same rule applies to the chains. Is the thicker the gauge, the less potent the pull. But a really thin slip lead, it'll grab you.
It'll grab your attention for sure. And so if you guys have ever watched like the AKC or like any type of like a Crufts dog show or something like that, you'll see these handlers with their dogs, and the leashes are pulled up really, really tight behind the dog's ears, which keeps the dog's head up, and they're prancing around the arena. Those are slip leads. Right. Those are really thin gauge slip leads where they can control their dog and keep their heads up and keep their positions. And this is actually a very common tool of choice. And it's so funny because if you put one on, a lot of people think that they are the least painful or the least uncomfortable of training tools. They're right up there with the choke chain and the rope. The rope and the choke chain are right there, very similar. The only difference is the material that they're made out of. Now, one of the benefits, chain over rope, if you have a dog who likes to chew on shit, the chain will probably have to be your better option. I've seen so many people where their dogs chew through their slip lead because they left it on. Even leather leads. If your dog's a chewer and a chomper, the rope's going to be way easier for your dog to go through.
Yeah. Can I say one thing? I notice a lot of people leave the choke chains on the dog. Like we were talking about the one that looks like actual chain links. Be careful with that. I would say just don't do it. It looks cool and everything, and people put tags on them as if they're regular collars and stuff. But I've seen dogs get caught up on their crates or over the wall or something. Fences. Yep. Yeah.
There was a dog, and sounds really, really sad. There was a dog who was an escape artist who was a client of mine. And this dog, they left the collar on. The dog jumped over the fence, and his collar got stuck on the fence. Thank the Lord they found him, and he wasn't dead.
Oh, wow.
Thank the Lord. But This dog was hanging himself from his own neck because his collar got caught on the fence. Right. So be careful of those things. Obviously, if your dog lives in a property or has a setup where he can't do those things, then don't worry about it. But if your dog spends a lot of time outside or likes to jump and there's things that the dog can snag his collar on, be very, very careful with that, guys.
Or just take it off when when you get home and you put the dog in the yard, take the chain off. But when you're walking out and about, it's a valid tool. It can definitely have its uses. Yeah, when we talk about the rope slip leads and things like that, we're basically now at the bottom of the barrel in terms of like how taboo. I even see, all positive trainers using slip leads. It's they don't necessarily have an issue with it, which is great. I do think that it's worth mentioning because you do bring up the the like pressure factor to discomfort that it can give you. It's definitely up there. So don't. I guess the moral of this story is make sure that you do your research, because I think probably the most uncomfortable tool that you could put on a dog, maybe e-collar, maybe like a really thick rope lead, or something along those lines. But when you're
sorry, I would add and agree with this or disagree with this. Actually, don't do your research. Go and actually get the collar and try it out. That's what I would say. Try and develop experience with it, right? Educate yourself. But the problem is don't educate yourself if you already believe that you hate a certain collar, don't look up articles that say I hate that, how much you should hate this collar. Go out and actually try the collar out to see if it works for you. If you guys have tried a collar that doesn't work, then maybe try one of the other collars in this list and see if it helps.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I'll have to to adjust that and say, seek out help. How's that?
There you go. That's better. Yep.
I
Way better.
know what you're getting at. We talked about this like a couple episodes ago. People read up on stuff and then a lot of times they just seek out the information that agrees with them already so that they can just tell themselves, I told you so.
They Google search, are choke chains bad?
Yeah.
You know,
how bad are choke chains,
yeah.
Or just Google images, choke chain, bruise marks or something.
Yeah.
So ask for help. Reach out to a
Yes.
professional, reach out to us. We've got our email here, dogtrainerspodcast at Gmail. We're happy to answer any questions that you guys have. And we're also happy to make some videos. Like the Star Mark video is a good idea because that freaking little plastic thing is hard to do.
Yeah. We'll definitely do that.
But anyway, so just in my own personal experience, okay, so we're not necessarily suggesting, I want to be super clear, this is just my opinion, not necessarily Brent's. In order of what can potentially be the most gentle, I'd probably put e-collar there because they're very like minute, and then maybe I'd put Star Mark after that. Then maybe we'd start to go to some of the slip collars and stuff after that. Prong collar would actually be surprisingly, doing well on that list too, because I understand how they look and I understand what people think. But the thing is, in practice, this is what he meant when he was saying, do your own, earn your own experience. Because if a dog is pulling, if we were to just put it on a scale of 1 to 10, my dog pulls at a 7 of 10 on a regular like slip lead. And you put him on a prong collar, that dog's not going to be pulling at a 7 on a prong collar.
No.
So you have to consider that, that like differential in pressure that the dog is putting. And so that has to factor into just how minimally, aversive the prong collar can look. So always keep that in mind.
Yeah, for sure. I think all that's just one little last thing. We kind of barely talked about it, the Star Mark. So the Star Mark is Martingale. Sorry, Martingale. You're right. It's the Martingale. The Martingale collar. This is, I think I'll put this at the, I don't know. I would actually put this at the bottom of the list. I would put this below slip lead, to be very honest.
Okay.
Only reason I put it on the lowest level of sensitivity for dogs is because of the fabric part. So the part that is nylon, that is an actual collar. Sometimes because that collar is wide, and the only part that's ratcheting is the actual chain itself. Dogs, the wider that the surface area of the collar is, the less the dog feels it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some designs of the Star Mark or not Star Mark, Martingale. Or the Premier collar, right? The Premier collar is just a Martingale without a chain,
right? Without the chain on it, right?
It has a fabric chain. But the only thing I would say is the wider that the collar, the fabric part of the collar is, the less sensitive it will be on the dog. And the problem is if we go too thin on the Star Mark, or what is it? Fuck, keep saying Star Mark, the Martingale. If you go too thin on the Martingale, sometimes it affects the strength of the actual collar itself. So you just got to take a look at what kind of dog you have, if it's appropriate. But my goal would be, like, if I could train every single dog to work their way down to a Martingale, right? That would be my goal. Like if my dog responded to the ratchet of this Martingale, if I was going to keep my dog on leash, right, not considering off leash training, I would want my dog to be on a Martingale most of the time. Right. And just so I will be able to walk my dog, take him potty, on a Martingale. That would be my goal, but it's not always necessarily the place that we start first.
Yeah, I think it's a valuable goal. I don't necessarily disagree with your goal. My goal is a little different, but that's not to say that I don't like yours. I think mine is just, I've always been a little more of the mindset of like, be as safe and protected as you can, because it's your job to keep your dogs, like healthy and happy. So my dogs, for example, are really well trained on e-collars, and I don't ever really plan to move them off of e-collar just because it works so well. And I take them off leash a lot, to be fair. So I'm not slamming anybody who, wants to move down. That's totally valid. I have no problem with it. And if one of my clients wants to do it, we do it. It's not a big deal. But just personally speaking, my dogs, I like the e-collars. They like their e-collars. It's nice to have that sort of like universality of, he's barking out front and I'm in the back and I can just, so it's in my view, do what you need to do to maximize safety and efficiency, because still always keep this in mind. Balance training, positive training doesn't matter. least intrusive, minimally aversive.
Mm-hmm.
That works for collars as well. And if my dogs do really well on e-collar, I'm not going to move them to something that's less effective unless, I personally don't see the need, but again, it's not a bad thing. It depends on, people.
Different strokes for different folks, guys.
I knew you were going to say that.
Aha! Stole it out of your mouth. And that's the reality. There's so many types of dogs, guys. So many different sizes, so many temperaments, so many everything. We can't reiterate this enough. The reason there's so many tools, techniques, philosophies, and dog trainings is because there's so many freaking dogs. We're really hoping that we're doing a good job, at least showing you guys this spectrum of possibilities that exist out there. Anything else you want to talk about, Mariano?
No, I just want to reiterate a couple things. In all training, timing, potency of timing, least intrusive, minimally aversive, that works in all aspects. I don't care if it's food. I don't care if it's a training collar. I don't care if you're mixing them together. Timing is everything. Seek out, certified opinions that can really guide you in the right direction. Try your very best. If you already have a sort of like negative bias or positive bias toward or against a collar, don't go and just reaffirm it on purpose. Right. Learn the actual information from people who you never know, but that collar might just make your training experience better. And other than that, just get to work. Be safe with it. Be patient with all of it, including food. And be willing to the possibility and understand that the goal is not to hurt the dog or bully the dog or, and roll with it. See what you can do.
Right. I love that. Awesome, guys. So thank you guys so much for listening to our episode 8 of the podcast, of the Dog Trainers Podcast. My name is Brent LaBrada, and that guy over there is Mariano Alvarez. If you guys have any questions that you'd like to send us, go ahead and shoot it to dogtrainerspodcast@gmail.com. We also wanted to announce, guys, we are now live on all 7 podcast streaming services. We're so happy. So Google, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio. I forget the other ones.
Yeah, tune in.
Do you know them?
Yeah, tune in. Alexa. There's a couple more, but we're there. So look it up.
We're live. We're live, guys. So if you guys have been watching us on YouTube, thank you so much. Click subscribe. If you guys now you guys can totally listen to us in your car or while you're running or walking your dogs. So thank you guys so much, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time. You guys take care. Peace. Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
See you next time.